Hello, I'm Milo, traveling with my dog, Willie Nelson.
I'm Jenny with my co-pilot, Dakota.
Two solo van nomads sharing our stories from the road.
We may travel solo, but we don't have to go at it alone.
Girls Just Want to Drive Vans podcast is created to help and encourage other adventurers.
Thanks for joining us. Hey.
Hey.
I'm Jenny, and I'm currently in Utah.
Hi, I'm Milo, and I am currently rolling in Georgia. Well, parked in Georgia. I understand we have a sponsor, Jenny. Who is it?
Yeah, we do. Today's episode of Girls Just Want to Drive Vans is brought to you by Baby Wipes. Now, I know what you're thinking. Jenny, I'm not a baby. Well, I've got good news for you. Baby wipes can now be used by people of any age, regardless of whether you cry when you need to be fed. Miss that fresh out of the shower feeling? Me too. While baby wipes can't actually get you that feeling, they can be used to wipe dirt and sweat around on your skin so you can pretend to be clean. But that's not all. People usually say duct tape can fix about anything, but baby wipes almost can too. Spilled some of your organic acai bowl on your thrifted vintage sweater? Use a baby wipe. Did your white dog, that may or may not be named after a country singer, just find his way to some mud? Use a baby wipe. Is your van broken down on the side of the road? Yeah, not sure a baby wipe will help you with that. Best of luck to you. So the next time you want to pretend to be clean, grab yourself a baby wipe and try not to think too much about how nice a shower would be. Now available wherever babies shop.
Yeah, that's pretty much an essential. That would be an essential for the van. When we talk about like what must you have, wipes.
I am presenting you my nearby baby wipes.
I've got them stashed up by the door when we first walk in, and I got them in the toilet. So,
an essential place for baby wipes.
Place.
Who knew you could use them for more than wiping your butt?
Who knew? So as we start episode 2, and we've done it twice.
Let me fill our viewers and listeners in on a little behind the scenes. So we recorded this yesterday, and I was a little cranky, which you wouldn't probably know by the video. I have a friend who called me out once before for referring to myself as cranky, and he's like, so what does cranky Jenny even look like? But wasn't at my best. In fact, it was due to job stress, which is timely because today we are going to be talking about jobs on the road. So this is take 2 because I wasn't feeling it yesterday. You got me at my best today.
And this is great. And I loved what you talked about yesterday, but that's fine. We're going to roll again. And so, yes, one of the number one questions we get asked is, how are we living this lifestyle? What do we do for employment? And so we both have very different jobs, but Jenny, I'm going to have you go first because you actually had a change of jobs from the time I met you to where you are now. So let's hear all about that.
Yeah. So hopefully if you're listening, you've also listened to Milo's other podcast and the episode where I talk about how I ended up on the road, because I didn't have a lot of time to make a good plan for getting on the road and having a job. I left without a job and knew I would just figure it out along the way. And that led me to eventually teaching English online to kids in China. And in order to teach kids in China, you have to work overnight hours. So I was pulling some crazy hours, working from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., 7 days a week for about 2 years. And it was great because it allowed me the daytime to go do whatever I wanted. But I was perpetually a zombie and just struggling with my sleep schedule. But I knew that I would just do whatever I needed to do to live this way on the road. So that worked great for 2 years. And then with COVID hitting, I started my own little tutoring business on the side. Before van life, I was a first grade teacher, and I have missed teaching ever since. So I kind of pulled in my strengths and ended up tutoring some kids who were doing virtual learning. And then my dream job finally landed in my lap, a job that I'd actually applied to 6 times. I looked back through the system to see how many applications I had put in over the years, leading all the way back to when I was building the van. But I now am a second grade teacher for a virtual school that is it has always been virtual, even before COVID, and will be after COVID. So the perfect way to combine teaching and van life, like it's all just come full circle. But as much as I say it's like rosy and amazing in my dream job, it wears me right out. I'm pretty tapped out by 4 p.m.
But you're going to have summers off, so you can do all the hiking and backpacking all summer without having to have that crazy schedule you had when I met you. I have a quick question because I noticed one difference tonight. Is it windy there?
I was going to say, can you see the screen shaking?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're rocking
I have
there.
it up on I have it up on a tripod, and I can see the tripod rocking, but like I'm mostly looking at your face, and I couldn't tell if you could see the video too. But yeah, it's quite windy. I actually think it was windier yesterday, but it might have been just coming from a different direction. Yes. Today's direction is the side to side sway.
Wow. I was like, what's happening there? Wow. All right.
I mean, I'm probably, if I move around, it also shakes a little bit. So probably not helping.
Maybe not. So as far as my employment, it's not even really that exciting, but it pays the bills. I had purchased the van while I thought I had a job, but that job slowly got cut back due to COVID. So I have a job, but I'm not really making a ton of money. So when an opportunity came for me to work remotely, and it was going to help cover all my expenses for this lifestyle, I took it. It's not the most interesting thing. I work with Excel spreadsheets, and right then and there, most people's brains go, oh, I'm done. So I basically pushed large amounts of data onto an automotive platform that deals with collision parts.
Ooh, tell me more.
I know. No, and that's where I'm going to stop talking about my job. But the point is, there are lots of remote jobs out there. If you go on Indeed and you type in remote work, or road warrior is even another keyword, you can find jobs working from the road. There are a lot of things out there, especially now after COVID. More and more companies are finding out that they can hire people remotely and that they will be accountable. The one thing to watch for is for companies who are going to still require you to either be in the state to be licensed or to be working with that company for their bookkeeping, basically, or if you have to report to an office a certain, maybe once a month or once a week for meetings. So when you're looking for remote work, make sure that you are actually it will work with you, how you want to live this lifestyle. And I want to also add something we didn't say in our first episode, is that this lifestyle is not for everybody. So it's definitely taking everything you think is important and then trimming that down to the bare necessities. Then putting those still and cramming them into a tight space. So what I love about this image of you, Jenny, is that right now I can see, and first off, it's daylight there, it's nighttime here, but I can see the top rack above your door is this beautifully stacked full of products, neatly, like everything shoved in there. So that's lovely.
Those products are mostly spices for cooking. And no, you're not real familiar with what those are or used for.
What spices?
We'll get to our cooking on another episode.
Yes.
Yes, those are actually used for cooking. There is some sunscreen up there too, which is also important.
But why would you not put them in the other cabinet above the stove area?
Those are full. And this is a spice sized shelf.
Oh,
there isn't a lot of other stuff that you could put up there. That was like one of the last things that I built. Yeah. So those of you listening, I have this little shelf above my door, my like sliding side door. And in a van, you have to use just every inch of space, especially if you're building it yourself.
Which you did.
Yeah, and actually behind that door, the wall like bumps out. And so when I was building the wall, it was going to be a disaster to cover that part up because like the wood would have to go at weird angles. So the solution was put a shelf in front of it, and then you'll never see the weird angles behind it, and you'll have another place to put things.
Smart.
Yeah.
You're a smart cookie.
I know. I am. I'm going to take all the credit for it because I built it.
Because you did build it. How long did it take you to design the van?
The design, or like the design and the build and all the things?
Give us all the things, like from start to... Yeah.
So
what was that time frame?
I bought the van in mid-May, of 2018. And then I hit the road at the end of September. But I didn't really get to start building until probably end of June, because I was also kind of homeless. If you haven't listened to the episode,
and that episode is called With or Without You, and it's in season 2 on Milo Talks, and we'll put a link there. But one of the other things I really wanted to focus on back to the job is we both chase cell towers. And to help people with this conundrum, Jenny wrote all the information down in a blog that you do. Tell them about your blog and about that article.
Yeah, so I get asked this so much about, like, as people are having the idea that they want to live in a van. Also, the one thing that holds them up is, how am I going to make money? And everyone would prefer to work remotely than be stuck in a place with a job living in a van. But how do you navigate having a cell signal? So I wrote up a blog post answering all of these questions, like very in depth. And so we will link to that, but I go over like what it means to have a good cell signal, like the things you are looking for, including like upload and download speeds and how to check those things. There are apps that you can use to determine your speed, but like going around looking at a signal, the bars on your phone don't necessarily mean you're going to have a good signal. So Milo and I both have signal boosters, which is helpful. Actually, one of early on into when we met, probably just a couple days in, I had a terrible work experience where the only cell phone tower for AT&T in the area we were staying in went down, just gone. No one had service in the entire area. And luckily I had I have AT&T and Verizon. That's one way that I make working on the road work for me, is that I can double dip into both, which in a scenario like that was very helpful. But my Verizon speeds were horrible, because the other thing you have to worry about with working on the road and relying on cell phone towers is the more people on a tower, the slower your speeds. So we were in an area where it was a weekend in the summer. Everyone's on the towers. Verizon was going slow. It was the evening, so everybody's on their phones. And Milo and I tried to hook up to see if we can put both of our boosters on my van to see if that would be the magic trick. But eventually I had to just go drive to the next town over, because that wasn't working. So the other thing with working on the road is like, that's the priority. Like, my job is what allows me to do this. So sometimes that means like I've stayed in places, I get there, I have no cell signal, and then I have to leave and drive a couple hours to the next place. And unfortunately, sometimes that would happen at 2 a.m. because that was when I was working. But you do what you got to do. And going back to like having a job on the road, and like if you're looking for a remote job, when I started, like my thing was, I'm going to make this work. I don't know how, but I'm going to make it work. And whether it was going to be working remotely, or my backup plan was like, I wait tables in a cool town for a couple months and then I go find the next cool town, or I work a seasonal job. There are a million different ways to put this together. And I would hate for someone to limit themselves because they don't have the perfect remote job. Right. If you really want to get out there, there are so many ways to do it, but maybe you don't have to wait until you've landed the perfect job.
It's true. And you don't have to wait till you've landed the perfect vehicle either.
Yes.
Yeah. So before I jump into that quick story, I use Google Fi as my carrier. I use my phone as a hotspot, and I have a Wii Boost also. And I've been in situations also where I have to work. I get up in the morning and I turn everything on, and I have no service, no signal, nothing's working. So I have to boogie down the road, and I have left some beautiful places to just get anywhere to where there's service, all the while like reporting in or trying to message work saying, hey, I'm sorry, I'll get on when I can get on. So I do have some flexibility with my job, which is really nice. It's not 9 to 5. I have windows of when I work. So I know what's coming. I plan ahead.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Does your employer know you live in a van?
Yes. In fact, when they interviewed me, I guess I didn't know any better not to say anything about it, because to me, it was my lifestyle. So their question was, well, what do you mean you live in a van? I'm like, well, this is what I do. And I was just really like direct and forward about it and proud of it. And it's exciting to me. So because I relate it that way, like I'm not homeless. My home just has wheels, and I travel for the sheer joy of it. And feeling like I almost have to. Like if I sit somewhere too long, my skin will begin to itch. And I'm pretty
That's
sure
what I'm feeling right now.
yeah. So I have a travel day tomorrow, which is going to be great because we are moving to a new location. So it feels good. You get energized. You're like, okay, I've got to prep everything and get on the road. And you have my maps all ready. I'm ready. I know exactly where I'm going. I know where I'm stopping. I know how far I have to go. I know how to exercise Willie Nelson before we get in the van. So, there's so much of that little detail. But no, as far as my employer goes, they just need to know that I knew the job, would be able to handle the job, and I would be available. And so I said yes to all that. And I think my polite and direct, I guess, answer of their questions probably landed me the job. So, but your employer knows that you live in a van, or they do not?
Not really. Kind of. So I did not tell them. When I interviewed, I pretended I lived in a home. I actually interviewed from a gas station parking lot somewhere in Idaho.
Okay.
And I just figured probably not important information, because that would be just an easy way to write me off as this isn't going to work. I really wanted this job. So I was like, I'm just not going to say anything. But as soon as my job started, I was heading back to Michigan for Thanksgiving. And so I kind of tested the waters and said, hey, I've got this trip planned. I'm going home to Michigan for Thanksgiving. I have a camper that I used to travel in, and I have it set up to work from my camper. And my original plan before I got this job was to drive and work and then go back to Michigan. Will that be a problem, or do I need to book a flight? And my employer said, no, that shouldn't be a problem as long as it doesn't affect your job. And so that was like my green light of like, okay, they don't really care where I'm at.
Right.
But again, I'm not going to like flaunt that I live in a van.
Right.
But then because I'm a first grade teacher, we did like a team building staff activity where we had to like we had to make an interesting sandwich where you had to give an interesting fact about yourself, a boring fact about yourself, and then an interesting fact about yourself. And I was trying to decide, how interesting do I get? It's an amazing feeling when you're like, I'm so interesting. Maybe I should tone it down. So just kidding. I mean, but not really.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing to say, I don't want to be too interesting for this.
Right. No, well, and all of my coworkers are like, their interesting fact was like, they love to binge a TV show. And I was like, oh, okay. So really, like, I got to scale it down a little bit. So one of my interesting facts was that I did get kind of interesting. One of my interesting facts was that I was interviewed for CNN. I have an article out on CNN about my plans for skiing for the winter due to coronavirus. But I gave them the disclaimer that I had that article launched the day that I got my job. And at that point, all of my plans had changed. So I didn't actually get to follow through with what I had interviewed about. But my other interesting fact was that I had a podcast, and one of my coworkers listened. And then in a meeting, which was fine because I was like, no one's going to listen. And in a meeting, one of my coworkers goes, Jenny, are you still in Arizona? And I was like, yeah, because she listened.
Right.
And so eventually it has come out to certain people, but I'm not flaunting it. None of my students know.
Sure.
That was a long-winded story. Sorry.
But no, it's a really interesting thing. And I'm glad you brought it up as far as if there's a stigma to living in your van.
There is.
Oh, you feel it? But
Yeah,
do you
okay,
feel
so
it?
yes, because think about this. So my job, I am a second grade teacher. And the job that I'm in is so different than when I was in the classroom, where my first point of contact was the students, and then rarely, but occasionally, the parents. And what the parents knew about me is what the students would tell them. So parents liked me if their students liked coming to school. So I was a very likable teacher because my students loved being at school. That was my number one priority, was making sure that my students loved to learn. But in this format, I'm teaching to a child who's at their house and mom and dad might be sitting in and all this stuff. So I have most of my contact every day is with parents also. And when you're thinking about who is responsible for teaching your child to read and write and do math, you want them to be a professional. You want to be able to trust that person. And although it's different than like handing them over to you for 7 hours a day in a classroom, I want to be seen as an expert and a professional. And I ran into this even when I was in a classroom where I did everything I could. I used to dress very nice for school because I look young, or at least I did 7 years ago. So I wanted parents to feel like I knew what I was talking about.
Sure.
And so being the teacher who lives in a van, I don't think bodes well for trusting that I'm doing a good job.
I get it, but you have the credentials, you have the education, you have the experience.
Yeah,
so I'm
a dang good teacher, but it's the very first year I ever taught, when I was student teaching, my mentor teacher, Anne, who is the most amazing teacher ever, she always used to tell me about you are a good teacher if your room is cute and if parents are happy. It doesn't matter how much the students learn. Parents need to be happy with you, and they view like what makes a teacher a good teacher on very weird criteria.
I guess I would think the traveling teacher from her van coming to my child from all these different unique places would be an amazing thing for my child, but I live in a van.
Yes. And so there's the part of me that wishes I could do more of like, look, there are so many ways you can live and explore and be a role model, especially for girls in my class that are like, you don't have to grow up to be a mom. Although you can, that's great. But like, especially the population that I teach in, I used to ask my students what they want to be when they grow up. And every year I had a couple of girls tell me they want to be a mom. And I was like, you can be more than a mom. You can be a mom and something else. So yes, there's a part of me that wants to be that strong female role model and show them this amazing life that I live. But I also need to be a professional and someone that someone can trust with their child's education, which is a huge responsibility. So
interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's
this is taking a very different course but it's than about talk yesterday.
But as far as like it is, but this is actually way better. As far as like I just didn't think about, because I don't worry about it. My employer knows what I do. I'm a subcontractor. So they really can't dictate anything to me anyway. But yeah, I get it. And I have no idea what they think of my van or my van life. I don't know. I mean, I feel like the ones I directly communicate with, they probably don't even, they just, if anything, on our calls, we have a call every Tuesday. And it'll be like, well, where are you now? And how's your weather there? Because they're in, where are they? Iowa. so my weather is usually better than their weather. But yeah, I never thought of them thinking poorly of me. I guess I'm really naive when it comes to some things because I choose to live in my very happy, the world's a beautiful place bubble. And yes, it gets popped often. I know, but for me, I would wish that those parents would know.
But I also think it's because I also just think it's because we're doing just very different jobs also.
True. I'm in the automotive collision part industry.
So like, they don't care. Are you getting your job done? Great. Yeah. But mine is like
changing lives.
Trusted to like change lives. I was going to see something really fascinating. Was it going to be fascinating? Oh, shoot. It was really, really important. It's gone forever. It's fine. Oh, I remember. I was going to say that when you're working on cell signals, like my entire job is video chat. All day I'm video conferencing with students. And so if I am in a spot where my cell signal is not cooperating, I don't want it to get blamed on it's because she lives in a van. So that's another reason why I kind of distance the van, where it's like, oh yeah, the Wi-Fi at my apartment's just being weird today. And it's not like, well, we should cut her because her internet's unreliable.
Because you would be unreliable because you live in a van.
Right. So I just don't want anything to be I don't want to give anybody a reason to not hire me back for next year.
I understand. Well, I think this was very informative, actually.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure we didn't miss a couple of things. I wanted you to share an unusual thing you carry on board. You froze.
Yes. Okay. So I actually have not talked about this much at all.
Hold on.
Can you hear me?
No, hold on. I can hear you, but wait for it. Okay. Try moving your hands. Nope. Okay. Hold on.
Can you hear me?
I can, but now there's movement. Yes. So hold on. I'm going to ask the question again. Oh, and you're clear. Yeah. Okay. What is an unusual thing you carry on board?
Okay, I'm excited to talk about this because I actually have not shared about this with anybody of my close friends. Okay. I bought myself something that's totally, like when you live in a van, I was saying every space counts. So I never buy anything extra. I don't have anything in here that I don't use and need. But I bought myself something wild because it's big and it's not van life at all. But I bought myself a piano keyboard. I don't even want to call it a keyboard because it's a full size keyboard. Like I can set it, I'm standing here at my bed, I can set it across my bed, or it fits across my kitchen counter, or I actually have like a stand and a bench so I can go sit outside in the desert and play Taylor Swift songs and cry. And so my unusual object is I actually have like a piano on board.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
It was part of my attempt to stay away from dating. If I get bored, I want to date. And so I needed an extra hobby instead of swiping on Tinder. So piano.
We'll save the dating for another podcast.
Several podcasts.
So I have many unusual things on board, but I think my most unusual thing that I don't get to use very often, but I will in a couple of weeks because of where I'm going, are my roller skates.
Oh, yes.
So
I was wondering what you were going to say and whether I would know what it was. I was excited to hear that.
Yeah, my roller skates. That was one of the first.
Okay, so where are you going roller skating? Well, I guess don't tell us that.
Yeah, I'll tell you after I've left that area.
Yeah, we're working on protection.
Yes, so being safe, being smart. Yeah. So we'll wrap this episode 2 up. I think this was great. I think we were very informative, and you didn't tip over from your windstorm.
That windstorm was actually my dog itching her ear. Oh. So that was the most recent shaking.
So let's really quick.
My very fancy professional podcast recording studio.
Yes. And also for next week for episode 3, we're going to talk about our dogs, having dogs on board and the ups and downs with that. So you don't want to miss that. But more importantly, stay safe. Are you going to be traveling between now and next week?
I hope so. I'm trying to be okay with staying still for a minute. I've got an exciting deadline this week of a cool project I'm working on, and I need to slow down for a minute because I've spent the last 3 weeks just driving across states. But I want to get out of here, so we'll see. Who knows? I might just decide one day I've got a couple hours and can drive.
All right. Well, I leave tomorrow for my new destination, so I'll talk about where I've been and share that in our next one. Absolutely. And I will see you soon, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks for watching us and listening to the podcast.
Thanks for listening. Coming soon, you will be able to subscribe to receive our newsletter, which will include links to our campsites, items we carry on our vans, and photos from our journey.
You can also catch Jenny on her podcast, Adventures from the Van.
Or tune in to Milo's podcast at Milo Talks.
Thanks for listening, and just go, do, and see everything you can in a safe way.